Hello, you retards and screwheads, and welcome to the latest edition of my show. This is called News of the Day, and that's when I take stories that are running through the news cycle and I put a biblical slant on them. And let's get started, shall we? The first story is about student debt in America. Student debt in America. Senile Joe is trying to pay some of it off for the students. Right? Wants to pay it off. And the people on Fox News were saying how that's kind of like buying votes, which is probably true, right? I mean, you're going to obviously gain some popularity if you're willing to pay off people's debts. And it's a big issue for me because it's something that happened to my family. I have a niece and she's in her 20s. And she's $300,000 in debt, which is crazy. $300,000 with these student loans, and she's never going to pay it back. She simply will never have the money to pay it back, and it's one of those things that is going to follow her around forever because you can't discharge it. I know what some of you are saying. You're saying, well, she took that debt on herself and nobody put a gun to her head, blah, blah, blah. And you're right. I mean, some of it is her fault. But I'll tell you this. She started taking that money when she was 18 years old. And you know how 18 years old people are. They're children. And she had no collateral. She had nothing. They gave her tons of money because they knew it was going to get covered by the federal government. I don't care what you tell me. She's a victim of a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme run by the federal government, by the banks, and by the colleges. And that's all it is a Ponzi scheme. They're taking these kids and screwing them big time. And these kids are going to carry this load and have nothing. And it's just so disturbing to see. You know, it's bad enough it's a Ponzi scheme. If it's someone like Bernie Madoff, a criminal. But when your own government's involved in a Ponzi scheme, you know, come on, give me a break here. And I said to her, I said, listen, you're never going to pay this off unless something happens like you write a best-selling book or you become a movie star or something outrageous. So you just have to accept the fact that you're not going to have good credit. You're going to have a job and, you know, your pay might get garnished. And, you know, that's it. You're just going to have to put your faith in God and get through this life and not concentrate on the finer things like having new cars. Because you're never going to have any credit to be able to do any of that. Owning a house. Never going to happen. I also said to her, I said, listen, the other option is you pack up, you move to Beijing, you become a teacher in Beijing or Shanghai or one of these Chinese places where the pay is actually pretty good. And you just start your life. You say, listen, I'm officially Chinese. I'm going to spend the rest of my life here in one of these schools making decent money, nothing spectacular, living in a nice apartment. I've lived in China and you can get a nice apartment for pretty cheap. You know, and you can come back and visit like once a year for a month. So she's not interested in that, but it might come to that. What else are you going to do? And this is what you know, and this is something that burns my butt. I ain't going to lie to you. These kids, like any other business, should have a right to have their day in front of a court, in front of a judge in a court, and have bankruptcy proceedings. And do you know who stopped bankruptcy proceedings for these students? The same guy who made it bankruptcy tough for credit card debt. And that's this Joe Biden. And I'm not kidding you. Go back and look it up. He's one of the ones who got in the way of students being able to declare bankruptcy. It's not just him. There are a lot of them. Why is that? I tell you something, when your country's dying and you've dismantled all the manufacturing and you've sent it overseas to Asia so they can build everything for you. And the jobs you have left, unless you're a genius scientist or something, is pretty much retail, real estate. You can be a real estate agent, something along those lines. Then the only thing left are Ponzi schemes. All right, those are the only things left. You saw in 2007, the housing Ponzi scheme where people started, using their house as like a bank account. Well, I can draw out lines of equity, right? They did that for a while. And then the collapse, the 2007 collapse when houses prices collapsed. And I'm telling you, this thing with the college debt, it's a Ponzi scheme. And eventually it will collapse. And I just hope it's not the debtors who take the blame. I hope some of it also goes to the creditors, because I want to tell you this. Loaning money is a business. Anyone who tells you any different, that they're doing you a favor and that you should get down on your knees and thank them, it's a business. And if you make bad business decisions, you lose money. That's the way it's always been. And the federal government isn't there to bail you out. If you make a bad decision, you loan money to a deadbeat, you sit there and you give them hundreds of thousands of dollars for some liberal arts degree, you deserve what you get, because they can't pay it back. The only reason you did it is because the federal government backed your play. And it's as simple as that. And it's outrageous. And you'll never see that on the news. You'll get the right winger saying, those kids, they got to pay it all back. Even though they're broke. They're working at some coffee shop like Starbucks making $15 an hour. They got to pay it all back. And then you'll see the libtards going, well, we have to help him. Let's pay it back for them. And they're both wrong. The old-fashioned way. You don't have it, you go to a judge. The judge looks at your paperwork and whatnot, says, you're broke. Renders a judgment. Because America, we don't want debt slaves. Anyway, that's my rant on that. Well, I tried to keep this under 10 minutes, so I got 2.5 minutes left. Story 2, and I got to look at my computer to get this little girl's name right. It's a shocking story. Her name is Joselyn Nary. This little pretty 12-year-old girl from Texas was raped, murdered, and thrown into a bayou. It's disgusting. But guess what? Illegal immigrants. I believe they were from Venezuela. What were they doing here? They shouldn't have been here. This goes back to 2000. I want to take us back to 2015 when Trump said something. He said the truth and people called him a racist. He said, these countries aren't sending us our best. Their best. They're sending us their criminals. They're sending us rapists. And we're going to have problems. And let me tell you, we're having some serious problems. Some serious problems. I'm looking at this girl's picture, and it just, she's got her braces, and she looks about 12, and it's just, I don't know, it's just, this world is so evil that a bunch of guys, I'm not even sure how many, I think it was 2. Let me take a closer look. I think it was 2 men. And yeah, 2 Venezuelan migrants. Isn't that disgusting? And wasn't Trump prescient? While everybody else was calling him a racist, and there it is right there. And for the life of me, I don't know why this border's open. I have no idea. I wish I did, but I have no clue why this border is open, and it's slowly killing our country. We can't survive this. And again, you say, I know why the border's open. I know. We all know why. It's a money thing. These rich capitalists, the same one who enjoy ripping off the students and putting them $300,000 in debt, like their cheap labor. Right? Come on up, and I won't have to pay money to Americans. I can pay less to you, cut your wages. Well, anyway, that's what I think. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, it's 10 minutes. I don't like to go over 10 minutes, so I'm going to say goodbye. If you like this this episode, press like. If you want to subscribe, press subscribe. You know, help me out. And I'm going to go now. And I want to wish you all a wonderful day. God bless you. I mean that. God bless you all. Bye-bye.